We have a new DLC class, and if this game is anything like Xenoblade 2, that means it's almost certainly going to be broken and very fun to use, right? Right? Well, unfortunately, that isn't exactly the case. Noponic Champion is an interesting class with a couple strong elements, but in many ways feels very underwhelming compared to what it could be, and has a lot of conflicting aspects in its kit. Looks like the true Noponic Champion is still going to be Cutie Pie. This class also came with a hero that has the Eno swap feature that lets you upgrade arts and stats, but that has no effect on the actual party members, so I won't really be talking about it in this video, and honestly, it's also pretty underwhelming. Regardless though, I think this class does have a few interesting aspects and can work pretty well with some other classes, so in this video I will discuss the new Noponic Champion class, talk about all of its strengths and weaknesses, and show how I believe to use it effectively. As always, if you enjoy these videos and guides, please be sure to subscribe to the channel because it really does help me out so much. I'll try to be more active again. Let's get into it. To keep things simple, I will be using Noponic Champion on Noah as he was the default hero for the class, although you can probably have a bit more success using the class on Mio who has higher agility, since this is typically supposed to be an agility-focused class. Now, this has a few conflicting aspects in the kit which I do want to talk about, so let's get into the skills for the class. The first skill we have is Tit for Tat. Whenever an ally in a fixed radius is attacked, this will boost the recharge of one art at random by 20%. This is really not very impactful, and ideally as a tank you want to have aggro yourself anyway. Now 20% of an art is 1/5, and it's only out of your 6 arts, so I would not say you're going to see too many positive benefits out of this in many situations. It technically does something, but it's such a weak effect that I just don't really find it to be overly useful. Especially when there's a lot of other ways to gain better art recharge effects in the game, especially if an ally is being targeted that isn't yourself because of things like Protector's Pride and Fraternal Badge. Nano Machine Repair. This is a similar effect to Cutie Pie's skill in Xenoblade 2. Unfortunately, that was one of the worst aspects of Poppi Cutie Pie, so I don't know why that's the thing they chose to transfer over. But regardless, this will add a 25% chance to restore 8% of your health when evading an attack. Now, 25% chance to restore 8% of your health is okay, but 8% is a pretty low percentage of your total health overall, and it's not 100% either, making it not the most reliable or consistent effect. And a lot of enemies aren't going to be attacking super often for you to get a ton of benefit out of this. Usually it's only going to be one attack, and then maybe an auto attack, then maybe an auto attack, then maybe another attack. Although on multi-hit attacks, this could be a lot more impactful and allow you to heal yourself up a lot more. It technically does something, but once again, it feels a little bit underwhelming as a skill, and I really wish it was just a stronger effect like the other skill. Velocity Gear is her most impactful and powerful skill. Every time you evade an attack, all of your arts except for your talent art will gain 10% recharge. I find this a lot more useful. It's a bit of a pseudo-Corvin effect from Xenoblade 2. Gaining recharge on all of your arts every time you evade attacks I find is a lot more valuable. Although I will say agility tanking is not quite as good in this game as it was in previous games just because you can't get your agility value all that high no matter what you do. But having some guaranteed evasion arts and other things like that can make it a bit easier to take advantage of this and get that recharge on your arts so you're able to use more arts and thus do more damage. The final skill this class has is Overclock. This boosts recharge rate by 20% each time the character is incapacitated, but it caps out at 25%, so you don't really get much extra benefit from dying the second time. Now, as a tank, dying isn't really a good thing. You will lose all of your aggro unless you're running like a Nopon doll or something, so you end up in a situation where you're not getting the most benefit out of your class because you're not going to be tanking yourself. And if you're not taking yourself, you also can't get the benefit of evading attacks if it's not like an AoE attack or something to take advantage of Velocity Gear. So even though your recharge rate is boosted by 20%, it's not really that impactful. And once again, there are other better ways to boost art recharge in this game by up to 50% in a lot of situations, especially on non-tank classes, because if you don't run a tank in your party, you pretty much always get the effect of Protector's Pride and Fraternal Badge, which is ironic since those are supposed to be for tanks. Regardless, though, I find this to be an extremely underwhelming set of class skills. One, you have no extra damage additives to even obtain aggro really easily to begin with, so that's already kind of a major problem for a tank to have. Two, if you have to die, you're going to lose even more aggro, making it even harder to get your tank aggro back. So that's just a little bit of a situation where I feel like it's conflicting with the purpose of the kit, especially if you're an evasion tank where your whole entire point is to try not to get hit and take damage by stacking up agility and just using evasion art smartly. So I find this to be a very conflicting kit, and that is my main problem with it overall. Regardless, trying to make it work, I'm going to be using a lot of damaging abilities as my master skills, Ultimate Qigong being one of the chief effects among them, because basically all my attacks except for one I'm going to be running is physical damage based, so getting the benefit of Ultimate Qigong is very nice. The description has been changed in the most recent patch to be much more accurate. It says now, when landing a hit deals damage as though the enemy's physical defense was 50% lower, which is a much more accurate description. It's still not super accurate since it doesn't say percentage points, but it is a lot more accurate and does make a bit more sense overall compared to what it was before. Stormy Gale. This boosts agility by 30%. I feel like if you want to run an agility tank at all and take advantage of this class, you probably would want to run this skill, although you might want to run a different skill instead if you don't really care about the agility aspect and want to focus more on the dying aspect, which I guess is technically a strategy you could incorporate. Fighting Prowess will boost damage dealt by physical arts by 50%. Since everything I'm doing is basically physical except for one ability, I find this to be a pretty good damage boost, 50% unconditional basically at all times. This is a pretty nice effect to have, and since we have no additives at all, this gets the full 50% boost to all damage, so I find it to be really nice because of that, and a pretty decent skill to consider running. You could consider some other tank skills, but then your damage is going to be hurting even more, and you'll have an even tougher time keeping aggro, so I don't really recommend it for this class. The critical rate's also really low, so you're not going to get much benefit out of critical damage, so I wouldn't worry about that either. The arts for this class include Dual Flash. This will boost aggro generated when using an art by 100%. This is a pretty standard tank-based art. It has a recharge gauge of 3 and a decent power multiplier of 310%, and can be a good art to consider running in pretty much all situations. I am not currently running it because of some other reasons, but I do think this is a pretty nice art, and something you could definitely consider running to get a lot of benefit out of the class. Refractive Edge. This will evade attacks, and it will also boost aggro generated when using the art by 100% at the cost of a lower critical hit rate. Now, this is another decent art to consider, but it has a recharge gauge of 9, which is very long, and one of the main reasons I don't want to run this art, and instead use Quick Draw as a master art to get an evasion art guaranteed instead, which is my one ether art, by the way, just because of that effect. It's okay as an effect, but the long recharge makes it not very impactful and is also going to make it really hard to get aggro back since you'll have a really hard time getting the full recharge back consistently. Now, the best aspect of this class by far, I would say, is Tri-Slash. This is a break art with a recharge gauge of 5, which is the fastest for an Agnes break art in the entire game. It is also the only break art in the game as of now that is completely unconditional. So you can land it from the front, you can land it from the back, you can land it from the side, and it'll always have a chance to apply break. I think this is a very good art to consider in a lot of situations. It's technically a master art, so you could use it on other classes, but this is the only class where you can pair it with Shield Bash and instantly get the topple effect no matter what if you use them as a master art combo. If you did it the reverse where the topple was the normal art and the break was the master art, it would not work properly because the master art hits second. So this is the only combination where you can instantly break topple with Tri-Slash, so that is one really good benefit of the class, and ironically one of the things that makes this class used in speed kills when it's really underwhelming in a lot of situations otherwise. This is a great art. It's definitely something worth considering. You're not going to be able to break as well as an ogre in a lot of situations, but it's still a pretty good effect to have, and if you want to focus on one of the major strengths of the class, I would definitely recommend using this art and an accessory that lowers break resistance of enemies, and just trying to get as many breaks and combos as possible. Luster Spike will boost damage dealt by 120% each time the character is incapacitated, up to a maximum of 250%, so after dying twice, this will get the full power boost. Once again, I don't really like dying in combat as a way to get more damage, but if you really want to take advantage of this class and get it to do as much damage as possible, then you need those 2 deaths, and this is a decent art if you have those 2 deaths. It has a recharge gauge of 5, which isn't that long at all, and you can take pretty good advantage of it when you do that. Dazzling Illusion is a pretty good self-stance art, I will say. It boosts evasion by 20% and aggro draw when attacking by 25%, which are both pretty nice effects for a tank to have, and it has no negative drawbacks at all, and a pretty easy way to keep it up infinitely with a recharge gauge of only 8, so you can always take advantage of the stance effect to get as much evasion and aggro drawn as possible, so I do like running this art because of that. This class has a lot of interesting arts, and it can be difficult to decide which ones to run, but I guess it really just depends on the situation. Shining Refrain is the talent art for the class. It is extremely similar to Luster Spike, where you gain damage every time you are incapacitated up to 250%, and it can be a pretty powerful talent art after dying twice, but just having to die twice is one of the things that I think really limits this ability and this class in a lot of situations. This art is also guaranteed to evade attacks, so I do like it because of that as well, because evading attacks is always nice. For my Master Arts, once again, I'm running Shield Bash to just pair with the break art of Tri-Slash, and I'm also running Soaring Tempest to just be able to do 3 phases of the driver combo myself as quick as possible, to set up those really powerful smashes, because I think that's probably going to be one of the most useful aspects of this class, instead of trying to focus on pure tanking utility when it's going to be difficult to gain aggro if you're trying to focus on dying. Quick Draw is here to round out the kit to give myself a guaranteed evasion art, because having guaranteed evasion is nice on a class like this, where you gain recharge from evading attacks, and just having an ability that allows you to gain that recharge more effectively on a very short cooldown of 11 seconds is pretty beneficial, even if it is an ether attack. So I do like this kit overall. There aren't really a ton of really better options. You could consider something like Crash Out if you want to gain more aggro on your attacks, but I like this kit, and I think it functions pretty effectively for the class. For my gen setup, I am running Tailwind to get as much agility as possible, since this will increase it by 35. I'm running Brimming Spirit to increase my aggro generated by 45%, just as a way to try to get more aggro, since the extra strength isn't going to be super impactful to my total damage, and the critical rate's already not great, so I'm not going to get much benefit out of critical damage. And Powered Combo is going to round out the kit to get a damage boost when canceling to gain more aggro, because I'm going to be doing more damage. So that is pretty much probably going to be the best setup to be the most effective tank possible, and try to keep aggro as much as possible. Now, you could consider running block rate up if you can afford it and don't want to run one of these other effects, because you can get 65% block rate and that function a bit more as an effective tank when you actually do have aggro. But it'll be a little bit harder to gain aggro, and you won't get as much agility if you run this instead of agility, but it could be a consideration otherwise. My accessories. I'm running Accomplished Van Braces because I want to take advantage of the break art. This is a new accessory from Challenge Mode that'll lower break resistance by 30 percentage points, which is 5 more than the break brooch. Definitely something to consider, and definitely a pretty good accessory effect to have, and helps be getting those breaks a little bit easier. Iova's rings are here to boost agility by 40%, just to give myself as much agility as possible. On Noah, that value is 509. It'll be a little bit higher on Mio to allow her to evade a bit more than Noah, and could be a very good consideration as a class on her. And finally, I'm running a Ceramic Belt to boost my attack by 32% to do as much damage as possible to get that unconditional 32% boost to basically everything that I'm doing. Now, you could run, of course, a Saturni Rings if you do have that, or have an extra copy of them, but I run it on an attacker because I don't really feel like doing New Game Plus to get extra copies of these rings. I'm just going to be sticking with the Ceramic Belt here because it's still pretty effective overall and will accomplish what I want it to. There are some other accessories you could consider, like some more additive to damage or something like that, but I find the setup works pretty well for what I want it to accomplish, and I've been talking about the setup for long enough, so let's take a look at how to use this class practically. I'm just going to be fighting level 170 Dragon because it's just the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to start off with the Tri-Slash, actually gets the break, and this enemy actually has pretty high break resist, so you're not going to really be able to expect that more than like 30% of the time without an Ogre being able to just lower resistance even further to get even more benefit out of that. But Tri-Slash into Shield Bash is very, very good if you're able to Fusion Art combo with them together, just for being an instant full duration topple, and you can combat into launch really quickly, as seen right there. And if you have a Smasher on your team, you can get a lot of benefit out of that extra damage as well if they actually use the Smash. Right now, I always stick to the class for the class guide, so I'm not swapping characters to get the most benefit out of stuff like that, but that is something you can do if you do have the ability to swap classes, which hopefully isn't going to be the most difficult thing. So I'm going to say I died on purpose there. I don't know if I technically died on purpose, but for the purposes of this video and the class, I died on purpose because we want to get our Luster Spike and our Talent Art more powerful. So I might as well get that death out of the way early so I can try to get aggro back as soon as possible. If I wanted to prevent dying entirely, I could go with even a little bit more of a defensive setup, or try to focus on using my evasion arts more smartly. But it really doesn't matter if you die if you're trying to die. Like I said, I just think it's a bit conflicting to have an agility tank that's trying to die, because one wants you to not get hit at all, and the other aspect of the kit wants you to take damage and die so you can get more powerful. I feel like this kit, despite the conflicting nature, might be able to have success in some longer fights, just where you can like die early on maybe. The problem is if you build yourself to like be able to take damage and die, you're going to have to worry about that the entire fight, even later on in the fight as well. So there's not really a great solution no matter what, which is why this class is a little difficult to, I'd say, use properly, especially without extra damage on its kit to make it easier to obtain aggro. There's my second death, so I should be able to get all of the full benefit out of Luster Spike, Shining Refrain, and the skill that gives me extra recharge when I attack now. Tri-Slash now effectively has a cooldown of 4, which isn't too bad at all, meaning I can spam that even more often, which can be really beneficial. I'm going to reactivate Dazzling Illusion to get myself more aggro. And more evasion. Really nice stance effect for that, at least. So, as you can see, Dreadworm's already at half health. I'm not even going to bother chain attacking because this class doesn't really do anything that special in chain attacks. It's a defender class, so it can give you your highest TP character back. It can apply combos in chain attacks if you have that ability. And instant break topple and chain attack can be pretty nice, but there's probably better options for that more than anything. You're not going to really see a ton of massive damage even when you have died twice. Lustrous Spike still isn't going to be the most powerful art in the world, and other classes with actual additives are going to be hitting harder. But this class can at least try to get aggro back, and it can do some damage at least. And honestly, like I said, I think the best aspect of this class is really just the break art. It's not going to work every time, but if you're going for like the fastest possible kills, it is one of your absolute best options just because of how quick it is, how effective it is, how you can team it up with Topple instantly, the fact that you don't have to be in any specific position to use it. Makes all of these factors make it a pretty good art to consider in many situations. Now, this fight's basically over at this point. Kind of just taking advantage of smash damage outside of chain attacks. I've been trying to get aggro back for a little while, but it hasn't been very effective, as you might guess after dying twice in a long fight. But at the very least, going to be able to finish this fight off very, very soon here. Even without my healers alive, because they both just randomly died right there. Doesn't matter, though, because we can just end this with a smash right here. So, I did record another fight for this, but this video was actually a lot longer than I thought it was going to be already, so I'm probably just going to end it off right there, because I don't really know what else to say about the class. It's kind of just a defender class that focuses on agility and focuses on dying, which is a little bit counterintuitive to the role of the class, I would say. And in many aspects, I would say the break is probably going to be your best aspect of the class. Its ability to get extra recharge on arts isn't bad, but there are probably better options for that for a lot of other classes as well. All in all, I think it's not as strong as Zephyr and Lone Exile as tank classes, but it's okay. It just feels a little bit disappointing since it is a DLC class, and in Xenoblade 2, the ZLC blades are all really broken, so it's a little disappointing that we didn't get the same kind of impact here, but maybe the next hero in class will be even more broken. We'll see. I hope you guys learned something from watching this video, and again, I apologize for not having videos out in a while. It's been hard to find motivation to make videos, especially with my new job taking up a lot of time and everything else, but I'm going to be trying to finish out all of the class guides. There's only a couple left, and I'll be speedrunning the game. I might be swapping all of my streaming to YouTube as well, so if you want to see speedruns, I might be here instead of Twitch. But at the very least, just check out all of my socials if you want to be able to keep up with me and know exactly where I'm going to be every time. With all that being said, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, support me any other way you can, because it really does help me out, and we are very, very close to getting that 75K mark for subscribers, which is a really big milestone. And I really want to thank you guys so much for the support, especially when sometimes it's more difficult for me to make videos. So thank you guys so much for watching this, and have a wonderful and blessed day, and hopefully I'll see you soon.